Max. We're going to talk a little bit about the flat earth conspiracy. Ooh. I haven't made a video on this because really don't care the shape of the earth. I don't think it really matters. I made a video a long time ago about the earth is immovable and everything spins around it. And I have all the links to all the research here that proves it. So the earth doesn't move. Period. And we have this new flat earth thing. Well, maybe the earth is flat. Maybe. Could be. I'm going to take a look at Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. So we have earth first, and then there is light. Okay. God saw the light, that it was good. God divided light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. Well, why does everyone have day and night? Because God said so. God, those words were made up by God. Earth was made up by God. That's where it comes from. Every culture on the planet. God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Well, that's an interesting thing. What is the firmament? And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. Okay. God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered unto one place, and let dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth. And the gathering of waters he called seas. And on and on. That's the creation account. Right? Now, to me, it seems like just from that, it would look a little bit more like this. I'm not really a flat earther at the moment, but it seems a little bit more like that than like, this. Especially when NASA can't figure out what kind of picture of Earth they're going to show. You notice how, like, the continents are, like, way big in this one. They're okay in that one, then, like, way big in this one. And these are official NASA photos. It's just odd. And I'm not saying run off to this model of some sort of flat earth goofiness or something like that, but you have to ask yourself, I mean, this is what stopped me. It took me a while to even be a geocentric person who believes that the earth stands still, even though the Bible says it very plainly. The earth doesn't move. And everything moves around it. It just kind of took me a while to get there. And the big thing here is you got a thing where Joshua's asked God to stop the sun so he could win a battle. And the sun stood still. And the moon stayed. Stop both the sun and the moon. Now, if we're traveling at 25,000 miles an hour in space, as they say, and spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, how can this happen? You can't. I mean, laws of physics and all that stuff. But the thing is that you realize that they're lying to you about the distance of the sun and the moon. They're lying about going to the moon. They're lying about everything. Lying about everything. NASA is a shill game. They're not doing anything up in space. Launch a couple of rockets and have some satellites up there. Big deal. They're not going to the moon. They can't figure out how to get to the moon right now. They're trying to figure out, maybe by 2020, we might be able to get there. They have this new program, Triton or something like that. Trident? I don't know what the name of the program is, but it was funny because they're like, well, we're trying to figure out how to protect the astronauts from the Van Allen radiation belts. It's like, well, geez, you flew through them like half a dozen times in the 60s. It's just because you're ignorant of it, you can just fly through? And now that you know about them, you can't? It's ridiculous. So anyways, back to Flat Earth. The Flat Earthers pretty much say that nobody can ever go to space, and there's no such thing as gravity, something like that. Yeah. What I think is interesting about the arguments, though, that you really can't deny is the NATO symbol is the same as the Flat Earth symbol. Why is that? Are they NATO hacks or something? Counter agents? I don't know. But I did the video, like I said, way back when, 2014, proving that the Earth does not move. And we're going to get into the arguments now about Flat Earth and why, I'm not endorsing it in Flat Earth. I'm all about actual, physical, realistic science. Like things you can actually do yourself. I hate theoretical mathematics like this little idiot does. And Albert Einstein and all that crap. Tesla didn't have his theoretical mathematics. He just did stuff. Yeah, he had math behind it, but it wasn't theoretical. He says, look, this is what happens. Albert Einstein didn't invent anything. And he was proven a fraud. None of his stuff works. E equals mc squared. Well, what's the speed of light? It changes. Well, I guess your formula is messed. I mean, theory. We're looking at stuff that works. Okay? Now, a big thing on a flat Earth, especially with pilots, it's called a gyroscope. Anyone knows what a gyroscope is? Pretty much, it's this thing. It rotates on a plane, whatever you set it up to do, and everything else rotates around it. And this is how pilots would calculate their altitude and orientation to the ground and the horizon. Now, if you're on a globe, how would that work? You would constantly be adjusting your altitude because the gyroscope is going to stay level based on your takeoff point. You understand what I'm saying? Gyroscope is going to stay level based on where you took off from. And then if you're going from, say England to Australia, you would constantly be adjusting your altitude because the gyroscope is going to stay level. It's going to give incorrect readings. If the Earth was round. Okay? I'm on a plane. I'm going to take off here. And I'm going to go over here. I got this whole curve thing to worry about. Would I not be pitching down the entire time as I'm flying to maintain my altitude? It's a serious thing to ponder. I think the big question is that everybody kind of depends. Here's the thing with my previous video right here. The reason that I got into this is because people's jobs, like even NASA engineers, depend on the fact that the Earth does not move. They don't make calculations for the Earth moving. They don't do anything like that. They just do their jobs. Nobody makes calculations for it. And it's the same thing with pilots or anything else. They don't make calculations for the Earth being round. They got bridges that are over 100 miles long. That means that the bridge should curve a couple of miles down by the time it gets to the other side. They don't make calculations for that. They just build the bridge. And those are some serious problems. Real serious problems. And I'm still investigating this whole thing and kind of looking at it. But what we have here is the Earth curve calculator. And it's of course an equation. What it comes down to is whatever your distance squared times 8. And that gives you the inches. That's what it comes down to. Eye height. I'm going to do 6 feet. Target distance 40. We'll calculate that. Horizon distance 3 miles. Hidden target height 912 feet. Which means that you can't see anything that's less than 912 feet. You see the curvature of the Earth here? Well, there's a lot of videos on YouTube that show that that's wrong. People can look with a high power P900 camera over the Great Lakes and see cities. I think it was New York to Ontario. You can see 30, 40 miles, something like that. And you can see the city like you're sitting in a boat in the front. I mean, it's ridiculous. But according to this, it says that it would be 912 feet below your field of view. And just to prove that, we're going to play the video about the boat thing, because that'll always bring up the boat thing. Well, see, you can prove the curvature of the Earth because you can't see the boat when it goes out far enough. All right, well, let's see. Uh-oh. They're gone. How come you can't see them there? I mean, it's ridiculous. Does that mean I'm saying the Earth is flat? I'm saying that the information that you're given is not correct. It's not correct by any means. It doesn't really matter if the Earth is flat or not. I don't really care. But it's physically proven that the information that's given to people is absolutely false. Absolutely false. As Ken Hovind would say, well, geez, if the Earth was flat, then I should be able to see all the way across the world. No. You shouldn't be able to see all the way across the world. You got weather patterns, you got smog, you got all this other stuff. But, according to the models that are given to us, you shouldn't be able to see anywhere as farther than like 5 miles looking out in the ocean. Maybe 20 miles with the naked eye if you're up on like a big building, something like that. And here you have it that you got people with cameras that can just zoom right in and go see anything that they want to. When they shouldn't be able to. They should not be able to. Should be below the Earth's plane there where it's curving. Why do we believe there's a curve? Well, because NASA took a photo 70 years ago. And, yeah. There you go. Here's your 7-year-old photo that was faked. If you look up on YouTube, a funny thing happened on the way to the moon. You have all the astronauts up there faking everything. All the quote-unquote lost footage where they're putting a transparency up to their window to make it look like the Earth. And they're in low Earth orbit too, and then they make another one they put up like a little piece of paper to make it look like there's like they make it give it that shape. But all it is them in low Earth orbit with a piece of paper shoved up there. And they took a picture of it. This is CGI. All this stuff is CGI. And they all admit that it's CGI. NASA says all their photos are photoshopped. Every single one. They admit it. And they say, well, we have to do that to enhance this, that, or the other thing. Well, why does the Earth look different? If these are official NASA pictures, why does it look different all the time? This is where we get our curvature of the Earth from. 25,000 miles around. That's what their official thing is. Now I'm just asking the question. Maybe it's 50 times that amount. Who would know? People just have to tell you that, because you're never going to go around the planet like that. Who knows? But the interesting thing is you can go 120,000 feet up and the horizon's still flat. Airplanes operate exclusively on the horizon, and gyroscopes that count on going from point to point as the distance being flat. Flat. The gyroscope does not care about gravity, and that's always the answer that everyone's going to go to. Gravity. Well, it's got to be gravity. Well, gyroscope doesn't care. It runs on centrifugal force. Now, I also want to touch on some things with people that are the flat earther people. You're going to watch out for them, because none of them saved. They're all kind of potty mouthed, and they all have some weird other ideas and stuff like that. Here he is running with a beer, and he's got his yin yang symbol. Okay. Might be onto the truth, but they're quite lost. So what I have here in my high budget notepad document is that surveyors do not account for the curve of the Earth. If you're a land surveyor, like I said, there's a bridge that's over 100 miles long. That would mean that the curve would be over 2 miles or something like that. You'd have to build your bridge to go down. Pilots see a flat horizon at all altitudes. Gyroscopes stay level over long flights. No pilot calculates or corrects the altitude to compensate for the curve. Should not be able to see cities over long distances with a telescope. Point-to-point microwaves, antennas, or whatever could not work if the Earth was a ball. And this is another thing, is the U.S. military uses laser-guided missiles on the water that fire over 120 miles. And they're point-to-point. You have to actually see and laser target somebody. And that is impossible. It's not possible at all if the Earth was a ball. Yeah. So, this other stuff is something else I'm working on. But there you have it. Does it matter too much? No, not really. Whether or not it's a ball or flat. But if it's flat, you kind of have to rethink your entire idea about the universe if you care to do so. For me, it's kind of difficult because, well, geez, if the Earth is flat, that means that all that crap up in the sky is just lights. It's not actually anything. There is no planets. And I'm kind of have been on that page for a while, is that there can't be any planets. The Bible doesn't say anything about planets. It just talks about stars. So things like Jupiter, Venus, Uranus, Mercury, they're all just lights in the sky. They're not planets. And that would make sense on a flat Earth. It would make sense. What gets me about the flat Earth is you cannot explain the constellation difference. Why is there a Southern Cross and why is there a North Pole or a North Star? I mean, I've seen videos on that and they're like, well, it's done with mirrors and this and that and the other thing. I'm like, well, that's a terrible explanation. That's just bad. But the point is that the curvature of the Earth has never been proven. And you cannot prove it. People have tried to prove it, and they proved that everything is flat, according to the dimensions that were given. Now, we could have been given crappy dimensions or something like that, but if you can see a city 40 or 50 miles away with a high zoom telescoping camera, and the curvature of the Earth says that should be 1,100 feet below your viewing, something's messed. I mean, that's proof right there. And it's repeatable. Anybody can do it. Anybody with a telescope or a zoom lens or anything can go any place and look 50 miles off, things that are out of your line of sight, and see what's out there. There's no such thing as the curvature of the Earth, and like I said, the military depends on it. They've always depended on that. You're out in a submarine in World War II. You always got a couple of guys on deck with binoculars. Why do they have binoculars? Because they can see a heck of a lot farther. Well, what about the curvature of the Earth? I don't think it really came up in World War II. I don't think so. I think everybody is running on this map. I think the Navy still runs on this sort of a map. As far as Antarctica being on the outside and all that crap, I have no idea. Whether we're surrounded by a dome and all this stuff, Bible says it kind of sounds like it, but I don't know. But if the information that you're given is easily proven completely false, like the curvature of the Earth, then it warrants investigating. And with that, we're going to be out of here.